Today, our guest is here answering that question. And that is if you've ever wondered what it takes to turn your dreams into reality, you're in for a treat today. Our guest, Brian Head, founder of Head Start Equity, is about to unveil the secrets to his phenomenal success. Now, Brian has 20 years of experience. Brian is actively and passively invested in 2,462 units across 18 properties, totaling a whopping $399 million. He's a finance graduate from UTSA and worked as a licensed investment advisor for a decade. But here's the hook. Brian's journey isn't just impressive, it's a masterclass. Brian, welcome to the show. We always like to ask our guests this important question. Brian, tell us about you.
Yeah, so I currently live in San Antonio, Texas. So actually born and raised here. I lived here all my life. I am married with two kiddos. I've got a 5-year-old daughter and a 12-year-old daughter. Of course, they keep us pretty busy. Yeah, so just to kind of give you a real quick rundown of, I guess, my career. I just recently, May of last year, I left a corporate job with a large financial services company here in San Antonio after nearly 25 years. So as you mentioned, I was a financial advisor and stockbroker for about half of that time. And the latter half of that, I was kind of a business analyst type role, working with IT and business folks. But during most of my career in the corporate world, I was also investing in real estate on the side. It was really my passion the whole time. So I've been doing that for over 20 years. The beginning of my story is kind of similar to a lot of folks that get in real estate. Bought some single family properties, started renting those out, and then started flipping properties as well. And then started getting into the smaller multifamily, so duplex, triplex. I've also invested a little bit in Airbnb as well. And then a few years ago is when I got into the larger commercial space, investing in the 100 plus unit apartment complexes. And so that's when things kind of really took off. And that was part of what provided me the opportunity to leave in May of last year after almost 25 years at my corporate job.
Okay. Now, Brian, can you elaborate on your investment philosophy and the approach it comes to value added multifamily properties?
Yeah, so I've always been of the mindset that it's really best to try to, if you're going to invest in real estate, to try to do it from a value add standpoint. So trying to find a bargain kind of going in, right? There's an old adage in real estate that you really make your money when you buy the property. Trying to find that value add opportunity where there's an opportunity to obviously add value through making renovations and things like that. And so in the multifamily space, that's what we primarily look for is multifamily properties where the units are renting for less than what the market is in the area. And usually that's because they're either outdated or they're being poorly managed, or in most cases it's a combination of both. So that's primarily what we look for in the properties that we invest in.
And after spending so much time far as in financial services, why not transition into commercial real estate?
Into commercial real estate, or
Yes.
Yeah, well, the multifamily properties that we invest in now are considered commercial. But in terms of are you talking like office space or some of the other types of
Office
commercial?
space.
Yeah.
Yes.
So it was a much more natural transition to do large multifamily because it's the same concept as doing single family rentals, just multiplied by a lot more units. And so it was a much more natural transition. Also, I tend to, my belief, different real estate investors are going to have different beliefs, and I think there's good investment opportunities in all the different kind of commercial assets. However, I will say that I've always been a big believer in residential because people need a place to live, right? So that's never going to change. And specifically, when it comes to residential, there's been a housing shortage for quite some time now, and so that helps present some opportunities there.
Okay. Now, in going into real estate and being in it as long as you have, what are some of the lessons that you've learned along the way?
Oh boy, there's a lot of lessons there. Um, one thing I'm not ashamed to admit, if you're investing for any length of time in any particular asset, you're going to lose money, right? And I've had I've lost money in real estate. And one of the lessons I learned early on was, I was doing really well flipping single family properties. And then I got into a property that was a larger property, much more expensive property, thinking, oh, I can replicate the success that I've done in these smaller properties into this big, expensive property. And bottom line is, I lost money on the deal. It took way longer to sell. There was a lot of extenuating circumstances. It could be a whole flip this house episode on TV with all the stuff that happened in that flip. But there's a lot less buyers when you start the higher price points you get to in real estate in terms of single family. There's less buyers out there, and the timing of it wasn't great, and I probably over improved the property. Even my very first property that I flipped, I way over improved it. I was way too picky. You hear a lot about, when you're investing in real estate, you have to make sure you look at it like an investment, not a house that you're going to have to live in. And with the first house that I flipped, I got super picky, this little run and the baseboard, and all these different things, and just way over improved, did way too much stuff, got too picky, and it was really expensive. And however, I did make a whopping $800 on the property. But I learned a ton. It was really the learning, and probably even more than that, it was proving to myself that I could do it and taking that first step and getting over that hurdle and getting over that fear of taking that, investing in that first property and just going for it. I didn't even have contractors lined up. I didn't know who was going to do the work on the property. I literally talked to the neighbor after I bought it, and they said, oh, hey, I've got a general contractor buddy that does work. And so I ended up using them, and, paid too much money for that. Again, another lesson that I learned there. But bottom line is, if I hadn't taken that step, I wouldn't be where I am today. And so that was a huge learning opportunity, but also allowed me to get over my fear.
Okay. Now, along this journey, were there any mentors, or if you can go back and find that young Brian, would you would prefer to have a mentor at that time?
And I had, so my real estate agent that I was using at the time, he kind of served as a little bit of a mentor for me. He kind of helped nudge me. I was literally having a conversation with him on the patio in the front of this house, and I he looked at me and he was just like, Brian, you just got to do it at some point. You've read all these books, you've done all this education, you're at a paralysis by analysis standpoint. You've just got to do it. And so he did help me get over that fear and taking that first step. And I did lean on him over the years to kind of help guide me through some of what I was going through and some of the lessons learned. I think, generally speaking, if you can learn from others' mistakes, that's a way better way to learn than making the mistakes yourself. You're inevitably going to make mistakes yourself. That's If you're not making mistakes, you're not taking risks, you're not taking chance, and you're not going to you're not going to excel in life, right? But yeah, he definitely helped me, and there have been other mentors along the way. But yeah, if somebody can find a mentor that can help them, that they'll kind of help shortcut some of the experience.
Uh-huh. So you shared with us some of the obstacles you faced and how you handled those. Uh, were there any other milestones along your journey?
Yeah, so in terms of the transition from the single family space to the multifamily, the larger type projects that I'm doing now, um, one of the things we kind of had, my wife and I had a life event back in 2018. My wife was diagnosed with breast cancer. Fortunately, she's cancer free now. She's doing great, but that life event really made both of us kind of stop and reflect on life, and what are we doing, why are we doing what we're doing, where do we see ourselves in the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years. And so we tried to kind of turn a negative thing into a positive thing, and that was when I decided, and we decided together that these larger multifamily projects were going to help expedite the process a little bit. There's plenty of people that can do really well and succeed in single family properties and scale that. That wasn't for me though. I didn't really want to go and purchase 100 single family properties to try to provide the income that we were looking for and everything. So decided it would be a better option for scaling purposes to get into the multifamily projects. And so that life event is kind of what spurred Head Start Equity, and kind of started that process.
Okay. And that's interesting that you brought that up. And that is, what changes in the industry have you noticed over the years?
Yeah, well, it's way more competitive. There are a lot more people investing in real estate than when I started. I mean, there was a decent number of people doing it when I started, but this was probably 22 years ago. And uh, I kind of a funny story. I had funny but not so funny. I had a couple properties that I did seller financing on to somebody recently, and I ended up having to basically they stopped making their payments. They hadn't made payments on it for like 3 months, and so I had to foreclose on the property just like a bank would do. And I went here in San Antonio, the way the county does it when they auction off properties, you literally go to the courthouse steps. And there's the different, trustees for the different properties are out there, and they start talking about the property. And, back when I did this, when I started doing this 20 plus years ago, there would be a handful of people at this event, at these events, right? Now, when I went, it was crazy because there was booths set up. There was this whole, I mean, there was dozens and dozens of people there. And it was just this whole spectacle. And I was just like, this has changed so much from when I first started. So I think it's gotten a lot more competitive. There's a lot of different, a lot of people trying to figure out their niches in the space. And so there's a lot of people wholesaling, meaning trying to find a property, find a seller that's distressed that needs to sell it, and then get it under contract, and then try to find a buyer after the fact. And so it's way more competitive than when I started. There's still ways to succeed and do well. Plenty of people are doing it, but it's definitely more competitive than it used to be.
And I know that there's a lot of, especially internet traffic, that there's a lot of courses being offered far as on real estate. Because one unique thing about real estate, and that is you can't make any more land or any more, uh, uh, you know, it is what it is right there. Uh, you can't go out and create anymore. You can build on it. Mhm. So that's been one of the things that really, I believe that that may have spurred, as far as like the newfound gold rush. Right there is the actualization or the realization that, hey, real estate, getting the property right there, holding on to it. Now, there's much more to it than just getting the property and saying, okay, now I have an ATM. I have the property, I just put bodies in it, and it's like an ATM. Every time I go by this time of the month, it's just going to be uh, spitting out change. Tell us about that.
Rainbows and unicorns. Yeah. Um, yeah, it does crack me up when So first of all, there's tons of courses out there. There's so many that are just I don't know, ridiculous to me. Like theoretically, yes, no money down and all these things that they tell you. Yeah, theoretically, yes, it's possible. It is possible, and there are ways to do it, and there are people that are successful with it. But it is like you said, there's a lot more to it, and it is not. Some people like to say, oh, go get a single family rental house. It's a passive investment. Well, it's not a passive investment. And even if you have a property management company that you hire to manage it for you, it's still not passive. They're still going to be coming to you for certain questions and things like that. And so it's not a passive investment, and there's still decisions you'll have to make. But personally, I've actually never used a property management company. I've always managed my properties myself. Obviously, not the apartment buildings. That's not something that's possibly, it's not feasible. But in the single family, small multifamily space, I've always managed it myself. And, it's not passive. There are some good courses out there, but I think for me, I think if I could give people one piece of advice on trying to get educated in real estate, whatever avenue you're going down, I would kind of go back to what you mentioned about finding a mentor and finding one that's local to you, because I think there's so many of these courses out there that are national, and do all this stuff online, and that's great, but I think you really need to be able to sit down with somebody, have coffee with somebody, and just pick their brain a little bit, and go with them to go check out a property and get their thoughts on certain things. And you can't do that if it's all virtual. I mean, I guess technically you can, but it's not the same. And so even when I got into these large multifamily projects, I joined a local mastermind group here in San Antonio, and that was one of the game changers for me in this space, because I was able to get around people doing these large, multi-million dollar deals that, before that I always thought, well, I don't have, $1 million in cash sitting around to go put into a property. But then I was able to get in a room with people that were figuring out a way to do it, pulling money together, investors and things like that. And so I think that's one of the biggest keys is finding a mentor that will really help you. And I would say that people that are serious about it, interview some different mentors. Don't just jump into the first one you find, and because they're not all created equal, and you may not gel with that particular person, and I think that's super important. So yeah, that would be, yeah, it's not all roses, and there's definitely some challenges, and evictions and things like that. I'm literally, I've still got some of my single family properties now too. Diversification is important to me, so I'm holding on to some of those as well, and I'm literally going through an eviction process right now. So those things happen.
Hmm. And I would imagine also that each area, as far as the region that you're in, also has a lot to do with that. So it's important that okay, I'm in the Southwest or I'm in the East. Then it's good to know, as far as what are some of the nuances, I would imagine, versus you can't get it offline right there or just Googling that. Sometimes you got to be in the area in order to really get a sincere feel as far as for it.
Yeah, for sure. I would totally agree with that. I think, that's the whole boots on the ground theory, right? Well, not really a theory, it's a thing. You want to have boots on the ground. You want to have somebody there local in that area, somebody that understands the market. And, that's why from an active standpoint, I've never actually gone outside of Texas to invest. I mean, I've always stuck to the state. This is what I know. And yeah, it is very different state to state. Some states are more landlord friendly than others, right? Texas is considered a landlord friendly state. California is not. It can take months and months and months and months and months. And what after doing this for a while, one of the things that does frustrate me a little bit is, and there's bad landlords out there, don't get me wrong, but this whole this whole concept of slumlords, and there are some of them, but I think landlords tend to get clumped into all together by some people. And the reality of it is, most real estate investors like myself, right? Yes, we're landlords. Yes, we're collecting rent from people, but we have loans we have to pay too. And when tenants don't pay, that hurts us. And so it's you know, I had during COVID, I had a tenant actually call me up and tell me, because they were doing they were pausing the evictions and stuff like that during COVID, which is fine. But I had a tenant call me up and say, "Yeah, I heard I didn't have to pay my rent. The president said that we didn't have to pay our rent." I was like, "No, that's not really how this is working. We can't
Yeah.
evict right now, but if you don't pay, you're just setting yourself up for in the future that's going to happen." So they just didn't. Government didn't want to create that hardship on people during that time, but you still are supposed to
Right.
pay. So it was kind of interesting, but yeah, there are some bad landlords out there, but there's a lot of good ones too.
Yeah, that sounded like that was a little bit of selective hearing right there. As far as so uh, the main things, as far as for someone who's looking to go into the real estate business, such as yours, or to take on a journey such as yours, you had mentioned finding a mentor, as far as someone that's local. So, where are some of the places that a person would find? Would that be the national or the regional real estate association, or how would they go about finding a?
Yeah, you could do that. Pretty much now there are so many different meetups in every city now. Different real estate investing meetups. We have actually our own real estate investing meetup here in San Antonio called Wealth and Whiskey. Kind of a pretty cool name. Buddy of mine came up with that name. But there's so many different meetups where you can meet a lot of interesting people who are doing these types of things. And I think that's one of your best bets, is trying to find somebody at one of those meetups. Because most of them are free, so you can just go during the week on an evening and just try to find some folks that are like-minded, that are willing to help you. One of the biggest challenges, honestly, is finding somebody that is willing to take the time, because just like any industry, any business, right? Everybody is busy. Everybody only has so much time, and time is very valuable. You can't get it back. So finding somebody that's willing to work with you, and if you can find that, and even better, if you can find it with somebody that isn't going to charge you an arm and a leg, that's great. And I think you just got to get out there, and you just got to go to those meetups, and you got to try to find some folks that are willing to help you out.
That is so important right there. Now, another thing, and that is, just as when you were in the financial services business, where continuous education is important, because the uh, the business is constantly changing. So, give us your take on that right there, or give us suggestions as far as for our listeners.
Yeah, I think that books are still a great way to educate yourself. For me, when kind of the first little seed planted for me in investing in general was from my economics teacher in high school, where he asked us to start tracking stocks in the newspaper. This is back when there was no internet, so we were tracking the stocks in the newspaper, and that kind of put that seed in my mind. And then when I graduated high school, I just went to the library and just started checking out books and learning everything I could. There weren't podcasts, there wasn't the internet like there is now. So obviously now there's podcasts. Podcasts are great. It's a great way to learn a ton. And so podcasts, there's so much information on the internet. Um, Again, mentors are a great way. But I think for me, I obviously I stay really connected with what's going on in real estate, but I like to look at a much bigger picture too of what's going on in the economy. I watch CNBC most days, just to kind of get a pulse on what's going on. Listen to different podcasts that have nothing to do with real estate, that are more on the economy, where what's going on with interest rates. And as much as I don't really like politics, I kind of keep up with some of that as well, just to stay educated on what's going on, because that can affect real estate values, that can affect policy changes are big in real estate, especially when it comes to taxes and stuff like that. And so I just think it's important to keep your education diverse, and don't just, if you want to get into real estate, obviously you really need to dig in and go into that and research that, but don't limit it to that. Look at some of these other financial avenues as well, and keep yourself abreast of what's going on outside of the real estate market, and how that can impact real estate. So,
Oh, that's a lot right there. Now, Brian, Brian, I know you're a very busy man, and I greatly appreciate your taking the time to share as far as with the audience this valuable information, because this could actually be applied far as to a variety of other industries. Now, before you leave, or before we end this, uh, could you give us some pointers, or what would you like our audience to unpack? What are some of the most important things that they should go away or come away with?
yeah, I think you kind of actually you mentioned it with the education piece. I think education is huge, and that's one of the reasons why I do what I do now, is because I actually love educating folks on real estate. I could talk about it all day. I just have to, temper it a little bit, because I actually need to do some work too. But I could talk real estate all day. So I think education is important. We also touched on fear a little bit earlier, and I think, and again, like you said, this could be applied to other avenues as well. But the reality of it is, success is on the other side of fear, right? And so you've got to be able to get over that fear in any avenue of business. You've got to be able to get past that, and that's probably one of the things that stops most people from getting very far, and especially entrepreneurs that are looking to, because it's a whole different, corporate world is one thing, right? The corporate world, yes, you have to work hard, and you have to do all that, and you have to be creative and things like that, right? But things are more dictated to you in the corporate world, right? You're kind of told, here's the things you need to do, this is how we're going to evaluate you and everything. When you're an entrepreneur, it's all on you. Like, the buck stops with you. It's all based on, your success is all based on what you're able to do, your success of your business. And so, I think getting over fear is just one of the biggest things for people. And it's not just jumping in and haphazardly and not planning. I think you need to plan. It goes back to educating yourself and trying to set some things up. And fear is a big thing, and it obviously held me back for a while too, because I was in a corporate job for a long time, but I knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur, and I knew that real estate was what I wanted to do, but I still stayed in the corporate job. And some of that was security, right? I had a great job for a great company, and it provided a steady income, and that was great. But it took finally getting to the point where, okay, this is it. This is what I want to do. And again, going back to life events, that really played a vital role in that as well. But I think just getting over the fear is huge. That's probably one of the biggest things.
Okay. Well, that's great right there, because our audience it's a diverse audience right there. And one of the things that we're finding out, and that is that there's a lot of entrepreneurs that are over 55 that are their first time out, far as in the field right there, because the landscape is constantly changing. So those are some great words of wisdom right there, Brian. Again, we thank you, far as for taking the time and sharing with us your journey and how you turned your dream into a reality. So that way, right there, our audience who are listening and looking at this podcast, that they'll take those golden nuggets and apply it to their circumstances, and at the end of the day, turn their dream into a reality and be intentional about it right there. Thank you again, Brian. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to subscribe, give us a thumbs up, and share it with a friend. Your support means